today we decided to get on a soapbox of a topic that we've personally went on soapboxes privately about many times, and that's kids with smartphones. And I asked Anna if I could kick off the conversation to her today because it just seems so obvious. Like, all I have to say is don't give your kids smartphones. It's stupid. But I know there's a lot more to say. So, Anna, go for it.
So I was just expecting you to say, should our kids have smartphones? And I was going to say, absolutely not. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you got something.
Exactly.
Because it just, like you said, it just seems so obvious. But again, look around.
Mhm.
It's not. You go anywhere and you see, I'm not even talking about teens
Yeah.
with smartphones.
Mhm.
I'm talking about 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Right.
So I think we have to approach this. Just look at yourself.
Mhm.
Okay. Like, I guarantee you, everybody that's listening has a smartphone because this is 2024, right?
Well, how do you listen to a podcast without a smartphone?
Exactly. Exactly. But could we live without it at this point? If you just, right now, Abby, if someone took away your smartphone, would that be a struggle for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't get to any location without my smartphone. My smartphone controls my insulin pump. I can't do math without my calculator app. I would get lost. I am very dependent on it in an unhealthy way that I hate.
And I think that we would all admit that about ourselves. I think if we asked ourselves the hard questions and truly looked at how many times we touch our smartphone. I didn't have mine with me for a large portion of the day. And it's amazing how many times I reached for my back pocket to pull it out just to see what time it was. Or just like I didn't even need to look at it. It was just it's a habit
Mhm.
just to pull it out and press the button to see what time it is or whatever.
Right.
But it's just a habit at this point, just to pull it out. And I just be like, oh, I don't have my phone. I wasn't getting a text or, it's I think if we all asked ourselves the hard question, we would say that it has made us a little bit lazy.
Mhm.
It has made us a little bit dependent. And it's taken away our ability to kind of be bored
Right.
or to sit or to really rest. Because if you sit down with your coffee in the morning, you're probably mindlessly scrolling,
Mhm.
right? I mean, whether it's Reels or Facebook or some other form of social media, or I mean, even recipe, we're mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah.
So we're less intentional with our
Mhm.
time because we always have something to scroll and just mindlessly fill our brain with. So I think if we look at even how it's affected the adult population, yeah, you've
Mhm.
mentioned some great things. Your medical technology is amazing, and what a huge benefit that is for you. For me, I can get lost in my driveway.
Yep.
Probably have gotten lost in my driveway. It's a long
You do
driveway.
have a long
Give me a
driveway.
break. Yeah, but there's also this dependency that we have on it that is, like you said, just unhealthy. And it would be really hard for any of us to go a day without our phone. So that's a whole other topic, our obsession and our dependency. But do we really think that we would prevent our kids from doing that? And I'm so thankful that I am going to age myself a little
Yeah.
bit here and say that I didn't have unlimited texting,
Mhm.
like texting that I didn't have to pay 10 cents a text
Yeah.
for until I was 23.
Mhm.
I know it was after I had Nathan.
Yep.
Um, and I can look back and think of how thankful that I am
Yep.
that the early days of my marriage that we didn't have
Mm.
smartphones to scroll. Like we had to have conversation. We also were, we got married at 18, so we didn't have like unlimited finances. So we didn't have cable or satellite. We talked a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm really thankful we didn't have it then. I'm thankful that I actually had to learn how to drive without one because there wasn't that distraction and I
Mm.
only drove places that I knew how to get to. I'm really thankful that I didn't have that.
Mhm.
And I don't want to rob my son of his childhood because you lose so much
Mm.
by gaining that dependency. And I don't want him to start that when he's 13.
Yeah. I am thankful to be 30 something years old because yes, this wasn't even an option for our parents. I don't know what choices our parents would have made. I have every reason to believe they would have made good choices, but it wasn't even
Same.
existence. We had the one computer in the middle of the house, and our parents did guard screens in general. And I don't even remember if mom might have had a smartphone. I don't think they were in existence. I was trying to think of like when we got married, I still had the Moto Razor, the hot pink,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
Yep, I had a flip.
text
Yeah.
costs 10 cents a text, receiving or giving. I'm like, do not text
Mm-hmm.
me. It's a dime.
Yeah,
And
I cannot afford it.
yeah, and so I am really thankful that my childhood we we played in the woods and we played in the creek, and me and Lydia and Beth and Timothy, we would ride bikes in the empty chicken house that smelled horrible, and we buried stuff in there. Don't tell the owners. Like we buried like stuff in Ziploc bags to like dig up later. Never going to happen.
The time capsules.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, wow, kids are not doing that. And there's things, I can't even blame my smartphone use on my parents because this started after, we'd been married for years and I got my first smartphone. And yes, there's so many ways it has changed me. It has changed my life. It has changed my brain. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sad in a lot of ways. And it's things that I can't get back. But I made that decision as an adult.
Correct.
And I
Right.
like there I read, what is it, like 10 ways your phone is changing you or 12 ways your phone is changing you. Years ago. And it was already true then.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine how true it is now. But it's like, yes, I allowed something to change me. Am I going to allow it to shape my kids? That's another question.
Right. And I have to just encourage you to look around at the people that have already made this choice and look at what it's so quickly cultivated within your children. If you go to a restaurant and you see a family, they're not sitting at that table together talking. They're all going to have a phone, right? And these kids have gotten to the point where they can't have conversations with people. They can text people, but they can't have face-to-face conversations with people. I actually know a person who said that it was overstimulating for their kids to have too many conversations, and so that oftentimes they encourage them to put on headphones and get something to let them kind of disconnect. Why do we want our kids to disconnect?
Wow.
Don't we want to pull them in, draw them in, and connect with them? We have them. Lately, I am just struck by the brevity of life, right? I mean, if you're a parent, it feels like you were pregnant minutes ago. I remember those days. They go by so fast. I'm a teenager now. And I have him realistically in my house for maybe another 4 years.
Stop.
But I don't want to rob the time that we have to make connections with each other by sitting around staring at devices, right?
Mhm.
And yes, like I said, I will already acknowledge that it is a problem for me that I'm trying to curve like this habit of reaching into my pocket to see what time it is
Mhm.
or scrolling mindlessly like I mentioned, but it's not something that I'm ready for my son to start doing now, and I don't
Mhm.
think there's a good way to prevent it. I think there's a lot of parents that think they can, that see the dangers for other children but somehow don't think that they'll apply to their children.
Mhm.
So I I think that there are a lot of studies that show that giving our kids a smartphone is I actually read an article that was basically titled How to End Your Child's Imagination.
Mm.
That moment, that
Mhm.
ends it because they're not going to be bored and get up and go find something to play with or go outside and find something to do. They're going to pick up their phone.
Mhm.
They're going to find some YouTube to watch, or, there's so many things that they just have this access to that prevents them from having to use their imagination to figure out how to fill their time, to pursue other interests, to explore things that they don't even know they're interested in because they haven't had that chance to be bored. And I think that's a really important thing for our kids, is to be bored sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think we would all acknowledge it robs them of their imagination.
Yeah. So
At the minimum.
you're robbing them of their childhood, which is horrible. But also, like, we're talking about, now it's our instinct to reach for our phone. We had the benefit of being raised and having our brain develop and learning to socialize. Now our kids, we're robbing them of like the normal childhood development of learning how to talk to each other. Like that story you said about like somebody telling you that it was overstimulating to talk to a human. So you give your kid a screen with LED lights and flashes and noise directly in your ears? What? Like that is a failure as a parent. Like human beings were made for community, and it's not in here. It's out here.
Right.
And if you have like trained your child not to be able to communicate with real live human beings, what?
Right. So we're killing their ability to have deep, meaningful relationships. And we're opening the doors to more problems, because what's the first thing your child wants when they get their smartphone?
Social media.
Social media. And so now, all of a sudden, we've opened the door to Instagram and Twitter and X and Facebook and Be Real and Snapchat, and their life, whether they intend for it to or not, whether they think it or not, becomes revolved around likes and follows and clicks. And they immediately begin to try to look like a certain person or be a certain person or look this way and get likes. They start learning how to use filters to mask their imperfections and impurities. They become less secure with who they are. There are statistics out the wazoo of how access to social media and smartphones increases anxiety and depression, decreases self-confidence and self-esteem, decreases relationships and ability to communicate. This isn't things that we're making up. Like, it is out there. It is in our faces. But for some reason, parents think that is so true for those kids, but not for mine. Because my kid doesn't have those problems, and I'm going to do a good job monitoring my kid.
Yeah, when I sat down here before I logged on, I just quickly Googled like studies about smartphones and children, and it's everything. This is, our podcast is like from a Christian worldview. This is not even a Christian perspective. Like everybody knows that we are giving our kids fire to play with. NPR, CNN, people.org, all of these things. And
the Children's Hospital Network had
the first one that popped up was Nationwide's Children's Hospital. And so I didn't even click on any of the links because I'm like, this is so stupid. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. Everybody knows it. And I think parents just don't want to be the bad guy. Well, everybody else has it. They're going to be uncool. They're going to hate me. And so it goes back to like what we've been talking about on all these things of like authority. Like, hello, something is bad for your child. You are the authority there, and it's your responsibility to do what's good for your child and protect your child from what's bad for them. So I think it's just parents are scared to be weird, scared their kids will hate them. I would be scared my kid would hate me if they looked back and was like, Mom, I didn't have a childhood. You didn't teach me to
What were you thinking?
Yeah. And this is so new. If we are not old, and this was not around when we were little. This is so new. You are allowing your child to be the experiment with enough data to know this is very dangerous, but you are allowing this very new thing to be, experimented on with your kid. Your kid is the statistic here.
Right. And if you look at, oh my goodness, there are horrifying stories about uh, kids that make one mistake
One, I know.
on their
Yeah.
phone. The first time they ever log into a social media, something happens. There's some interaction, and
Hmm.
they truly think that they've done something so terrible that it's worth taking their own life.
Hmm.
The suicide
Hmm.
statistics for children since smartphones, that's not a coincidence. It's
Yeah.
not. And just the outright danger. Your child is not immune to this. You
Yeah.
don't be foolish. Don't be
Well,
foolish. Don't overlook all the statistics and all the
I
things.
think a lot of parents say, "Oh, I'll give you a smartphone, but no social media." Well, now
Right.
every app is social media. So I was just talking with somebody who was telling us, "Oh, what's that app? Find." It's kind of like Find My iPhone. Like you can track your kid. Ugh,
Like Life 360?
yes. Well, she was telling me, we have this app so that you can find all of your kids, but now these apps, their friends are connecting and they're like being like, I'm at Chick-fil-A, where are you? All these things.
Yeah.
And so now Life 360 is social media. Games are social media because you can chat in them. It's all social media. So
Yeah, it
it's
is.
kind of like I think a lie parents will like comfort themselves with. I was like, well, they don't have Facebook. Okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And the times that I've heard teens talk about how they have manipulated Life 360
Mhm.
to be somewhere where they're not supposed to be.
Yep.
Like I've heard these things.
Mhm.
I know parents who have found out that their child had purposefully left their phone at work. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Come on. We have to be smart parents.
The other thing I see is like kids with Instagram accounts, but in the bio, it'll be like, this page is monitored by my mom. Okay, who cares? They're still being
Yeah.
shaped by that. They are still being shaped. Girls, little girls, learning like realistic expectations of what they should look like. Little boys having realistic expectations of what girls should look like. And now I'm talking to teens
Yeah.
that are like, we want to get married, we want to have relationships, but nobody will talk to us in real life. It's that they
Yeah.
don't know how.
Right. It is truly breaking relationships. And yeah, I know so many people that say, "Oh, but there's this app that's going to provide security. I'm monitoring this." Your kids are being raised in the age of technology and they are smarter than you.
Yeah, if you think you're better at the iPhone than your kids are, like you're in denial.
No. No. I watch the youth of today and they're better with these devices than their millennial parents. I promise you there are ways that their friends are teaching them to get around everything that you could put in place. There are apps that look like scripture that are not that.
Oh my
So, and
gosh.
come on, you can delete things. They can make it so that you can't find it.
Hmm.
They can do
And
that. So
on the other
so
hand,
don't.
yeah, they can delete things and hide them from you, but there's another aspect of like nothing will be deleted. Like
Right.
and kids do not have the ability to understand long-term consequences like that. Oh, whatever I
Mhm.
say when I'm 8, it can be screenshotted and shared and could keep me from getting a job or ruin my life years and years from now.
Yeah. And we've seen athletes and actors
Hmm.
and
Yep.
politicians have things from years ago. There was recently a college athlete who had something from his 14, 15-year-old years that somebody screenshotted and shared, and he lost endorsements and
Hmm.
like all these things.
Yep.
Your kids are going to make dumb choices. Don't give them the platform to make them in a place that can affect them for the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point because it's like, yes, you know what? don't give your kids a smartphone. I'm sure they're still going to lie to you. They're going to tell you that they were somewhere.
For
And we
sure.
can probably look back into not us personally, because we never did anything like this, but like,
We've never done anything wrong ever,
exactly,
right?
right. So, but like y'all guys listening, you told your parents you were at work and you weren't or something, you know, that's, within the realm of normal, like childhood
Hmm.
mistakes. But to
Right.
give our children the ability to make mistakes in private is a gift that honestly should not be rare. It should just be what we do for our kids.
Yeah, it should be the standard. So I think we would all acknowledge that there's such a great risk for danger. I think that if we were truly honest with ourselves, we would know that the safeguards that we think we're putting in place are just making us feel better and really not providing as much protection as we would hope.
Mhm.
Um, I think we would all acknowledge that there's an increased risk of depression and anxiety and um, risk for other addictions.
Mhm.
I mean, becoming so addicted to a screen
Mhm.
just opens the door for you to become addicted to other things.
Well, and
Addictions feed addictions,
and
right?
the
And
age
so,
that like children are seeing pornography for the first time is like very scary low.
sure, because oh my goodness, even if they're doing something
On an
innocent, I'm
accident.
sorry, have
Yeah.
you seen commercials these
Yeah.
days? Have you seen the ads that pop up? Because I don't do anything scandalous on my phone, but goodness gracious, I've gotten some texts and some apps or some ads that popped up
Mhm.
that weren't meant for me, but I saw them.
Yeah.
And you can exit out really quickly. You can know that your
Yeah.
kid's going to exit out really quickly, but they see it. It's there. It's there. They've already been exposed.
Mhm.
You've already neglected to protect them from that.
Mhm.
So I think if we were really honest with ourselves, we would all acknowledge those things. But the vast majority of parents are still making this choice.
Mhm.
And so I have to ask myself, why?
Yeah, I think
Why? You see all the risk, you see all the things, and the only thing that I can decide is that we are sacrificing our children on the altar of our convenience
yeah.
because we think it's convenient to not listen to our kids complain. We think it's convenient to be able to pull up a phone and see exactly where our kid is. We tell ourselves it's convenient for our kids to be able to reach out to us and call us, for us to be able to send them a text. I think there are things that we think will make our life easier, and we're setting all the risks aside because we want to be lazy parents.
I bet if we asked every parent of like a 3 to 1 year old, are you going to give your kids smartphones? They're going to say absolutely not. But something is changing around the time, don't you think? Like no parent,
No,
I think at least
no.
my
How
circle.
many 3-year-olds do you know that already have a screen?
Yeah, but I think people are making a distinction here, like
How
their own smartphone.
you think?
Yeah, I think. Let me tell you,
You
at least
think?
my friend
Because
group. My friend group, I think if you ask the toddler moms, they would say I would never. But then when it gets hard to say no around 7, 8, 9, especially kids in the public school system who are comparing themselves to other people who are given iPads at school to do their homework, then it's hard
yep,
to say no. And then all of a sudden, I can't be the bad guy. They can't be the only one. That's what I think.
right. Because if your kid is away from you all day
Hmm.
and the only interactions that you have with them are fighting over the things that they
Hmm.
want or need or think they need,
Hmm.
then yeah, you're saying, oh, if we just have to do this every night, it's just not worth it.
Mm,
We're going to have a terrible relationship.
mm.
So, first of all, don't send your kids to school. Keep your kids home
Yeah.
and protect them and find a good group of friends like you have or like my son has because he's 13 and doesn't have a smartphone and guess what, he's not weird in his friend group
Hmm.
because he's surrounded and my kid has friends. Okay, we're socialized homeschoolers, but his friend group is different
Right.
because they're being raised different because they are not exposed to all of those things in the public schools. We meet as a group of homeschoolers every week, and there's nobody that's walking around with a device
Mm-hmm.
because it's not allowed.
Yeah.
But even if it was, most of these parents haven't made that choice for their
Mm-hmm.
kids and wouldn't at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I do think
but
public
I think
school.
if you look at the culture, I do think if you look at the culture, those parents that already have tablets for their
Mm,
toddlers, it's a slippery slope.
yeah.
What's the
How
next
are you going to
logical
say no
progression?
past a tablet? Yeah. I think public
And that's a whole
school.
nother
Yeah.
conversation. But
And I'm sure
yeah,
we'll have it. I do think public school
oh,
is
we
a
will.
big part of this problem. I was just talking to somebody else who was like telling me that their teenager had to teach themselves handwriting because in elementary school they were on computers and iPad thingies like doing their assignments and
Right.
they didn't have to
I
write.
think that's a norm. You don't have textbooks anymore because it's more cost effective to have digital books on a tablet or a Chromebook.
Which is crazy to
Um,
me. I know textbooks. I remember paying for textbooks in college, but also like this house does not have an iPad because they are freaking expensive. Like Jordan and I don't have an iPad. It's a lot of money. I cannot imagine handing these out to
yeah.
kids.
Well, and okay, so there's another thing. That's expensive to put get your kid a smartphone and add them to your line. Like I pay for 2 lines and I don't want to pay for another one.
Yeah,
Like
I know. Listen,
this is a very costly decision that you're making financially as well as sacrificing your child's well-being.
but Anna, how many kids does the average person have? Like 1.3. And so again, and these people, it's fine, Anna, but I'm just telling you, like at,
So shamed right
these people
now.
are
Let me
like,
go hide under a
no,
rock.
your one child, your 1.3 children is amazing, and I love it, and he doesn't have a smartphone. Yeah. Anyways, the average person has like 1.3 children if you do the math, but and these people will say, I can't afford to have more kids. Well, you're making choices. We have 9 kids in this house and none of them have smartphones and none of them have iPads and none of them have computers and none of them have name brand shoes. They're
But
fine.
they all eat and they're all well dressed and they all have toys. They all have a bike.
And they can look
You
you in
know,
the
they
eyes
have
and have a
things,
conversation with you.
and that's invaluable. Yeah, it's a costly financial decision, but that doesn't even come close to all the other things that we've talked about. So I truly think a lot of these parents are making this decision for their child's temporal happiness despite, setting aside long-term effects for their children and, dangerous potentially short-term effects.
Mhm.
But we think it's convenient because we make excuses for, like you said, there are some things that technology has given us that are amazing. And so we say, oh, my kid needs one because I'll always know where they're at. Oh, my kid needs one because they're going to start driving soon and they need maps. Okay, it might be less convenient, but is it the only way? Is it the only way? Garmin has been making GPS devices for a lot longer than Apple has. And they have some really cool stuff. There are other ways to do this. There are watches, there are not smart devices that have coordinates for you to say, okay, my kid's out riding his bike, this is where he's at. There are other ways. Are they less convenient? Yeah. Are you probably going to have to use a few different ones to come up with the difference that a smartphone would make? Yeah. Are you protecting your kid by making those choices? I think we would all have to say yes. I
Mhm.
really do.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm trying to think of a good reason to give your kid a smartphone, and I can't think of one.
Oh yeah.
So let's say age, Abby. What? Because someone's gonna be curious. What age do you think is appropriate?
So I'll just tell you what we have decided for our house. While you live in our house, you will not have a smartphone. That is what we have decided. That's how we are protecting you when you live on your own. If you live here when you're 20, if you have a job and you're responsible and you're, you know, whatever, I'm fine with you living here when you're 20, but
Mm-hmm.
you won't have a smartphone living here. So
Sure.
that's just what we've come to. I'm not going to say it's a law. There's not a Bible verse, but like you said, I think again, everybody these days is like trust the science. the research is
Okay.
resounding. Yeah,
Here I'm trusting
I
it.
I trust it. I didn't even open it and read it because it's common sense, so I don't feel like I have to. But for my kids, I'm gonna be really. I think it's gonna be. Yeah, they're gonna think we're the worst, and that is fine. Then you can move out. That's just what we're. That's
Sure.
what we're doing. We have.
Yeah. And that's probably healthy for your kids to
Yeah, I.
not live with you as adults. So,
Yeah. And I personally hope, and I have told and will tell my kids, like, I I miss some of the things that not having a smartphone like robbed from me. And we know
mhm,
many adults, especially in seminary, who just said, I'm not having a smartphone. And they had literally flip phones. They
mhm,
would not get a smartphone because they're like, my whole ministry could be shipwrecked. My family could be shipwrecked. I could lose my marriage. I could
sure.
lose my calling. And so we know many people, and I respect them greatly, that
Yeah.
just refuse to ever get a smartphone or chose to switch to a dumb phone after having a smartphone. And so if our kids would move out and keep making that decision, I would love that for them. Do I think it's likely?
Yeah.
Probably not. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I have this conversation with my kids a lot. You can make bad decisions when you're an adult. And because, like, I drink Diet Mountain Dew, and my kids like, can I have a Diet Mountain Dew? No, it's so bad for you. You can't drink Diet Coke with aspartame. Who are you? Who do you think you are? And they're like, but you drink Diet Coke. Yeah, I'm an adult making a really bad decision for my own body. And when you're an adult, if you want to make really bad decisions for your own body, you can. I hope you don't, but you can. But
Mhm.
I like, children cannot consent. There is no informed consent for children. Children cannot go read all those studies that say
Sure.
that there's a 130% increased likelihood that they will have depression. They can't
Yeah.
read these studies that say their brain is being wired differently because of their phone. They can't read the studies that say they won't be able to socialize, that they have a higher chance of ADD or sensory processing disorder. They cannot read and consent to these. So while they are children, it is my job to protect them from things that are dangerous. So who's reading the studies? Well, I didn't read them. But if I, didn't know, then I would read them. Who's reading the vaccine inserts and consenting or not consenting to things? Me. Who is deciding if you can cross the street or not? Me. I'm doing that for you to
Right.
protect you. When you can give informed consent, you can make a bad choice.
Yeah, and you make a good point about our kids asking us one day, like, "What were you thinking?"
Hmm.
And about all of the things that you mentioned, there's a really good chance that your child could grow up and read some of this research and say, "You had access to this. What were you thinking? What did you do to me?"
Hmm.
And you have to be able to, with confidence, say, "I made the decision that I thought was best for your well-being at the time."
Right.
And I don't think that this is an instance where you could confidently say that because it's just staggering the dangers that are out there.
Hmm.
And you can talk to me about the educational apps, you can talk to me about the medical apps, you can talk to me about the apps that you would use for safety and tracking and location. There are other ways to do that where you're not risking your child's well-being.
Hmm.
Um, we do have um, my son is of the age where he's often places without us, and I do, for safety, want to be able to get in touch with
Yep.
him. He we live on a large farm. With woods and creeks and rivers and bluffs. And for his safety, I do want him to be able to contact me if he's out with his dog and falls or his dog gets hurt. I do want him to be able to
Gets
contact
bit by a
me.
snake.
Yes. Ooh, please don't add to my
Sorry.
fears.
Sorry.
No, thank
Sorry. Never
you.
mind.
No, thank you. No, I rebuke that. So, um, what we have done is those flip phones that Abby mentioned, we have a voice only 35. It was 10 cents a minute when we started this, but thank you, inflation. It is now a 35 cent a minute
Oh
plan.
my goodness.
Um, and it is not his.
Right.
It is a house
Yes.
phone. It is basically, we view it as our landline, but it's also portable in that he can take it out into the fields with him.
Hmm.
Um, working on a farm. If he was helping to bale hay, or if he was with a grandparent or a great grandparent, there might be an instance when he truly did need to call for help. So he does take this when he goes out to work on the farm or to walk his dog, or if he's somewhere without us. He does have it, does not have the ability to text. It does not have the ability to go on the internet. And honestly, it's one of those old school keypads that we learned how to text
Yep.
on. It wouldn't be an easy thing for him to do. So we do have that. And it works for us. When we want to get in touch with him, it's worth 35 cents a minute to us. It's not worth 35 cents a minute to us for him to call friends. If he would like to call and talk to somebody, then I will let him use my phone to do
Mm-hmm.
that in a supervised way. But there's never any need for him to use it to contact somebody that is not his mom or his dad or a grandparent. If he truly needs help. Now, I might use it for my convenience. I might use it to call him and tell me, "Hey, I'm out working on the fence line. Bring me the post hole diggers." I'll pay 35 cents a minute for my convenience, but I won't sacrifice his well-being for my convenience. So again, there are ways to be creative. I do acknowledge that we live in a society and in a culture where we do need to be able to get in touch with our children.
Yep.
But this isn't the answer.
Yeah.
This device, this smartphone is not the answer. There are other ways. Explore them and make a decision that's safe for your family.
Yeah. Yeah. And I truly think more and more workarounds will be coming up as like right now, we have so many babies and toddlers. By the time they're at this age, I think there's going to be even more options because of
I think
how
so too.
prevalent this research is that's showing on every level this is not good for children. So I think there's going to be more, but right now, yes, there is. I looked it up that yes, TomTom, Garmin, it's still a thing. When we got married,
Yeah.
Jordan had a Garmin, or was it TomTom?
Everybody,
Yes.
the year that it came out, everybody got a TomTom for
Yeah.
Christmas. I think that was like 2007, I think might have been the first iPhone that's year we got married. And like 2008, everybody got a TomTom for Christmas because most people still couldn't afford the iPhone. Or
Mhm.
do you remember the BlackBerry? Like that was a thing.
Oh, I kind of miss that. See, I miss the simpler but cool things. Like,
Yeah. Or the Palm Pilot.
I wanted one of those. Yes.
Like there
Those were the
were these things, but
days.
they had such a short
Because the iPhone killed
lifespan.
everything.
Because then the
Yeah.
iPhone came out, and when it became a little bit more affordable, everybody just got one of those. And so TomTom was really popular for a Christmas, and by the next year, nobody was using it anymore.
Yeah. Well, they
So
still make
everybody
them.
that I know
Bring
got one for
TomTom
Christmas that year.
back. I will sign a petition. They still make them, and I think that's a great option. Some of our kids are getting older.
And so much less distracting. So much less distracting to a driver.
Yeah.
So much safer than trying
There's
to
less ways.
find the map on your phone.
There's less ways to get in trouble. So yeah, for our girls are getting older, and we're committed to no smartphone. So yeah, we ended up getting a kids watch through Gab.
Yeah.
And again, it's not theirs. It's not any one of them. It's not theirs. It stays in my coffee drawer and it's turned off. But when I choose that it's convenient and helpful and safe for me to hand it to the person who's going to violin lessons or to the person who's going to piano lessons, I choose to hand it out. I hand out my watch when I decide to. And they also do like a kid phone, but I just like didn't want our kids to think they had a phone and feel like they had a phone and act like they had a phone because there's that air of like this is our phone. And I'm like, no, you're not cool and you don't have a phone and you're not even going to pretend that you're cool and have a phone. I have a watch.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing about the flip phone. It is the most uncool thing you've ever seen. It's quite
like
old. It's quite dated. So it's not something you want your friends to see.
Hilarious.
So it's not something that would come out.
Hilarious.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, with the watch, we have my phone number, Jordan's phone number, and then the local police department plugged in. It can only call or receive calls from pre-programmed numbers, and they can also send me like a voice memo. So it's like,
Right.
hey, mom, I'm getting my shoes on, coming out, from gymnastics or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what we've chosen to do for this season. But yeah, there is workarounds. I think there's going to be more. Just do better, guys.
Are out there. The information's out there. This isn't an uninformed choice.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a lazy thing that we're doing, and it's not good for us. It's not good for our kids. It's not good for our relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Have the hard conversations, do the hard things, listen to your children, and then explain to them, I hear you,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have all the information, and it's not a safe thing for you. So thank you for talking to me about this. And we can talk about it again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something we're going to do right now.
And you
It's not
have
something
the
we're gonna do.
authority to make the final
Yeah.
decision. And just think, in 20 years, when we have our kids over for dinner, I would rather hear them be like, oh, mom, you were so weird. You never let us do any of the cool things. I would rather take that.
You made us go play outside.
I would rather take that criticism, if you can call it that, than
I would wear it as a badge of honor.
than be sitting around with my kids. Or maybe they won't come over. Because social media has indoctrinated them against me. Or like just kids that can't look me in the eye and have a conversation with me, and kids who are on their phones instead of talking to me. And so it's just, fast forward and see, our kids are going to critique us. Our kids are going to want to do things differently than we did, but
that's fine.
I can live with some of it. I could not live with the consequences of giving them technology when they're not ready for it.
Yeah. Sometimes I tell my son, before you do something, think about the worst possible outcome. And can you live with that? If you can, it's probably okay. But if the outcome, the worst possible outcome that you can think of is a terrifying, sad, tragic thing, it's probably not worth doing.
That's a really good thought experiment. I really like that. I'm going to use that. Yeah. So, like in this situation, what's the worst thing that can come from not giving your kid a smartphone? People think they're weird.
They have to figure out a different way to entertain themselves.
That's a best thing. That's a great thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm struggling.
Yeah. I think that's the word.
The flip side,
Yeah.
they lose the ability to entertain themselves. They lose their imagination. They lose their childhood. They learn about things in a way that we would not prefer for them to learn about them. We weren't able to filter some of those interactions. They're exposed to immoral or dangerous. I mean, think about the Tide Pod trend, or goodness, there's so many dangerous ones that have cost kids their lives. So, worst possible outcome, you're making a choice that could hurt your child's, could add to their depression, could add to social anxiety, could lead to depression, suicide. These things have happened. We're not making them up. So that's not an outcome I can live with. So it's not worth the risk for me.
Yeah. We're shaping our children. And the thing is, we're not shaping just children because they don't say children. We're shaping adults. We're shaping humans. And to allow something else to do that, again, is just a great abdication of our responsibility.
Yeah, I agree. It really comes back to your worldview. What do you believe about your role as a parent? What do you believe about the authority that the Lord has given to you? And are you ready to abdicate that?
Yeah. And it's a grave thing. It's a very heavy thing. And
Yeah,
I think it would
is.
be scary just to live under the weight of that all the time. Like, I'm shaping a human that's going to have a spouse and that's going to have children maybe, and that's going to need to work a job and, live a full life. And
I'm raising somebody's husband, and
no,
I don't want.
yeah, okay, yeah, you are. That makes sense. I thought, never mind. I'm not gonna. I was confused.
I have a son. I'm
Yes, you
raising
are.
someone's
Good.
husband.
Good job.
I hope selfishly that I'm raising somebody's father.
Mm,
And as that future spouse, I don't want to know that my future daughter-in-law has a husband that was exposed to unrealistic expectations of her
mm,
very, very young. What am I doing to his future
mm,
marriage, his future relationships?
mm,
How am I cultivating that? That's the relationship I've been praying for since I knew he was coming.
mm,
I mean, one day there will be a girl who becomes the most important person in his life. And I want him to cherish that. I want them to have the marriage that the Lord intended for them to have. And I could make a decision right now that would give him a pathway to harm that.
mm.
That's not worth it either.
Yeah, it's so. Ooh, it's just icky. I don't love the like addiction language. Like, oh, I'm addicted to my smartphone, or I'm addicted to like pornography. I don't love that because it takes away the like culpability of like I'm making a
Sure.
choice, I'm sinning, I'm choosing to sin. But it makes me like with kids raised as this is their only coping mechanism, and you enabling that being their only coping mechanism for years and years and years and years, then I do think they have a more valid claim to like addiction. Like this is a habit that my parents allowed me to form. And so it's just like that's
And some of us
scary.
encouraged,
Yeah, well, I mean,
here's your tablet.
yeah, so don't do it, it's
It's a
stupid.
very Yeah, it's a very, very heavy thing, but honestly, we tried really, really hard to think of a good reason, and we can't do it. So, your kids aren't the only weird ones because Abby has 9, I have 1, so there's at least 10 other really weird kids out there, and they can form a support group one day. It'll be
Yeah,
fine. It'll be fine. They can socialize with each other about how repressed they were.
yeah, man, I mean, yeah, I'm about ready to throw away mine right now after this conversation. Well, if
That's
you still have a smartphone after this conversation, follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, tell us what you think. Give us your thoughts because this is something that everyone has a lot of very real opinions about. We all start with one opinion, it usually changes. So send us your feedback. If you believe that you have found a way to make this a safe decision for your family, share that with us. We would love to hear feedback of maybe some of these workarounds that you found. Like I shared what I did, Abby shared what she did. What have you found to protect your kids from this? We would love to hear those things. And if you have some great ideas, we'll share them on Instagram with our other followers so that they can have access to make some good, safe choices for their kids too. But we hope we've given you some things to think about. Um, and we hope you'll tune in next time.
Yeah, if you still have a smartphone, go ahead and listen.